do have to move to our guest who's calling back in now, and we are live. So I will mention that.
Hello.
Hey, it's
I'm ready.
It's the our favorite actress and comedian and writer Maysoon, who normally comes on the Nicole Sandler program at this point on Thursdays. And Maysoon, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet you. So what are you guys talking about?
We've been talking a little bit about everything. My co-host and I, his name's Scott, and I'm Jacob, and we do a show called
Hello.
we do a show called Filter.
Hello.
It's a party here. We do a show called Filter Free Radio, which is on Nicole's Radio or Not network on Monday and Wednesday evenings. And our kind of point is we want to get across the real truth that you can't hear in the corporate media. We want to talk about the real, solutions, the real independent, progressive, alternative perspectives that can really bring about real change to the world and big picture kind of stuff. But that's, just a snippet of where we come from. And of course, all program, we've been talking about the fiscal cliff negotiations, the disastrous proposal that Obama laid out, and these other things. And also, I've been asking callers to call in all program long with what they think are the greatest accomplishments of 2012. At the end of the year, everyone comes out with their best of list, the best of 2012, and I wanted to do a list of like the best accomplishments. So, but what do you want to talk about?
2012 was a pretty rough year. I'm trying to think of what the best thing that happened this year is. I'm coming up blank. I guess that Romney lost. What do I want to talk about? See, when I come on Nicole Sandler's show, we talk about all sorts of random things like gremlins and Palestine and gremlins in Palestine. So I guess with the fiscal cliff, I'll tell you this. One of the things I've always said is I represent pretty much every minority on God's green earth because I'm a woman and I'm ethnic, I'm disabled, I'm from New Jersey, So I can talk about that, but the one thing I know nothing about is money. So the only thing I can tell you guys about the fiscal cliff is, number one, I don't think they should touch anything that goes to old people because all the old people I know really count on those checks. And old people are a big pain as is, so if we take away their checks, it's going to just be anarchy. And so I guess I would say we need to rethink our foreign aid and how we distribute money overseas and kind of use some of that to deal with the issues here. And then, of course, I always say just, sell and tax marijuana, I guess. Isn't that supposed to drag us back off the fiscal cliff or get us so sedated that we don't jump?
There we go. Well, that leads me right to my. Well, no, I'm so there with you, and let me mention because I forgot to mention your website, Maysoon. It's maysoon.com, MAYSOON.com, so folks can check that out for more information. That leads me right to, I put together a little short, top 5 of what I thought were the accomplishments of the year, and that was number 3 on my list, the state of Washington and Colorado legalizing marijuana. I thought that was a huge accomplishment in step, towards the progressive positions. But if you'd care to hear, I can tell you the other ones real quick.
The state of New Jersey just opened a dispensary, and I've been very public about my opinion about marijuana and medicinal marijuana. Marijuana itself, as far as people smoking it at their leisure, I've had a lot less problems with people that are high than people who are drunk.
Exactly.
That's just been my life experience. And then as far as deciding what can and can't be prescribed, I cannot imagine how our society justifies continuing to prescribe drugs like OxyContin, who's proven to be addictive and to kill people, but are balking at prescribing marijuana, who also have proven facts of it being really effective for everything from morning to neurological disorders. I mean, you can't really justify that anymore. And I get the lobby and the game and the money. So I'm just saying, make it part of your lobby and your game and make some money off of it and make everyone happy.
Well, you talk about being there in New Jersey. I mean, you've got Newark Mayor Cory Booker, who came out, a couple days ago on Huffington Post Live on their website during an interview and said words to the effect of that he endorses medical marijuana, but he also wants to go beyond that. So maybe New Jersey is going to become the next state to legalize marijuana. Scott and I did a full
They could. I don't know. We have a governor named Christie who has a lot more power than the Newark mayor does. Even if the Newark mayor thinks he's Superman, you still have to get past Big Bad Christie if you're going to do anything in this state.
Big Bad Christie. and
we got to be realistic, you know.
For the folks who obviously aren't familiar
What
with...
were your other 5 moments?
Right. And just to mention, for folks who may not be familiar with the work that we've done, we did a full 2-hour expose on the legalization of marijuana. We had on the program, on our show, the author of what was Oregon State's Measure 80, which would have legalized marijuana, and that's all available on our website if you'd like to check it out. But yeah, any movement in in the right direction is a good thing.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. I feel like by doing this, like, experimental state by state, they're creating more problems because they're not addressing simple issues like, you know, what should the legal age be and where is it allowed and why. Like, each state is making up their own laws, and I like that people like things micromanaged, but at the same time, it seems like it opens the door for more problems than solutions.
It can, but on the other hand, I would argue that in order to reach a big goal or a big solution, you have to take small, gradual steps to get there. We can't just expect President Obama to come out and say, "Yep, we're going to federally legalize marijuana," because if there's no parade for Obama to jump out in front of, then he's not going to do anything.
Yeah, and I've always said, let's be realistic. The black president is not going to be the one who's like, I'm doing this during my second term just to prove everyone right. You know, it's just not going to happen. I understand that, but I do agree with you that state by state is good baby steps, but they need to be more specific. You know what I mean? So when Colorado and Washington State came out, did they come out with a legal age? Did they come out with where you could smoke and where you couldn't? Did they come out with, like, the regulations related to driving? Did they kill all the noise that's going to come with this?
Yeah. Probably not. Unfortunately.
I'm just sorry to be Debbie Downer from New Jersey. I'm just saying we have the best state with the best laws.
Well, and hey, we're all about taking a realistic look at everything, because you can't solve any problems we're facing unless you know what the heck the actual problem is. If you start with some fantasy, depiction of reality, then you're not really looking at the real issues of the problems here. So, I don't know. I'm just squawking.
Since we're talking about random things, I think that as I'm the token disabled person on this radio. Is anyone else disabled with me? I don't know you guys. Anyone else?
I have a horrible hearing, and I am 1/8 Cherokee Native American. That's my qualifications, I guess.
That's not a disability. It's a nationality, I guess, but I liked it. No, the reason I'm bringing this up is actually a very sad subject, which is, of course, you know, we've all been very consumed with the tragedy at Sandy Hook. And one of the things that's been happening in the news and on the net is this weird mixing up of autism and mental illness. And I just wanted to take a second to make it very, very clear that autism is not a mental illness. They're not the same thing.
God, who's saying it is?
These
That's
words
terrible.
being bandied around synonymously, they're actually not synonymous. And neither of these things, neither of them, which are both in, you know, the disability category, should be vilified. in this case. I very much feel like mental illness is being treated like Muslims right now, and are this really blanket, like, don't be surprised if a crazy person kills you, because that's what crazy people do. And, that's not a realistic statistic. So I just wanted to kind of take a second to be really serious and be like, words do matter. And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of vilification going on, and disability is being scapegoated in a way that I don't think it should be.
I have a clip for that, Maysoon. Maybe words to this effect will ring home with you.
Why don't you try speaking in words instead of your damn dirty lies?
And Scott, you were trying to ask something there. What were you going to say?
Oh no, you're spot on. That's the result of these things. It's rather than mention the economy and the pressure and the stress that people are under, especially which will make anybody a lot of people snap. You just say, oh, this person was crazy, and then dismiss it as if it couldn't happen to you or me or your neighbor or any one of us.
Well, or to simplify things to like the one component. That's what's happening, is that everyone wants to simplify this to the one component that matters the most to them. So someone like me who's obsessed with bad parents is going to talk about parenting. Someone who's obsessed with guns is going to talk about protecting the Second Amendment. Someone who's a teacher is going to talk about the lack of funding. Everyone's kind of taking the angle that they want to take, and it's not that simple. It's not one factor. It's like we need to look at the big picture. And like you guys said, with the same thing with the marijuana laws, you need to look at the big picture and start bit by bit figuring out this huge puzzle, and not thinking that one small thing is going to change us overnight.
Absolutely. Scott and I have talked so many times about the lack of attention span these days. I mean, if you watch a movie from 30, 40 years ago and watch a movie that's made today, watch how quickly the frame in each picture will change, and the picture changes. It's like less than seconds now, because just the culture and society has bred us to have shorter attention spans. And now when we're dealing with really complex problems, we don't have the attention span to handle anything more than a simple solution, and simple solutions don't solve complicated problems.
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing that worldwide. And it's really interesting because my work has taken me in the Middle East. I've worked extensively in the Middle East, and I work with disabled refugee children overseas. And you see such a huge difference between the privilege of the children here and the level of the attention of the children there. It's like here, I feel like in the States that electronics have very much replaced everything else, from outdoor activity to talking to your kids while you're driving. I remember going on road trips across America with my dad and like looking for license plates for every single state, or trying to find the first letter of the alphabet. And now you pop on a DVD and you're done. And so I think that there's a huge disconnect that's happening with our kids. And parents don't understand at all the ability their kids have and the access they have on the internet. That's like a constant theme, whether I'm in the Middle East or if I'm in America, is me talking to parents who don't want to admit that I know more about their children than they do.
And it takes that empathy. If we don't have empathy, if we don't go over to other parts of the world and see that, by the poorest standards in our country, in America, we are still the richest in the entire world, unless we actually see that and experience that, we don't have empathy, and we can't put ourselves in other people's shoes, and we can't understand where, for instance, some other people might be coming from. I mentioned I'm like an 8th or a 16th Cherokee Indian. I've always had like a connection with nature. I love trees, and I love being outdoors and these kinds of things. And I love talking about climate change. I mean, I don't know. I just...
You know that when people come visit the States from, like my friends that have come from the Middle East to visit the States, one of the things that shocks them the most is the fact that we have homeless people. Because our image to the outside world is this almighty, all-powerful, super-rich superpower. And then they come here and they're like, wait a minute, you got people living on the streets? And I'm like, yeah, there's like massive poverty in this country. There's, a lack of health insurance. There's a million different reasons that you end up on the street in America that no one knows about outside of the States when they look at us. Like, our image and our reality are totally disconnected.
So our international propaganda is working, huh?
Yeah, it's working really well. It's actually working here, too. Hey, Americans still don't realize what a travesty NDAA was and how weird it was that they decided to sign that on a Saturday night that happened to be New Year's Eve. I mean, how much more shady can you get? How much more shady can you get? Well, we sit here and fixate on the Second Amendment. And by the way, like I always say this, I grew up in a house with guns. And I'm not anti-gun. I'm just saying we can't continue on the path we are. And as we all fixate on the Second Amendment, aren't we ignoring that whole due process thing? Isn't that one of the amendments? I don't like quoting the Constitution because I don't have it memorized like all of Bon Jovi's albums. But isn't one of the amendments, doesn't one of them protect our right to due process?
Something like that. I recall vaguely recalling something.
Doesn't like threaten that amendment? Are we just going to talk about the Second Amendment forever and ignore all the rest?
Right, and how wrong do they have the interpretation of the Second Amendment anyways? It's not about the right that you can have as many guns as you want in the state of Texas. That's not the point of the Second Amendment.
Military-grade weaponry on the streets of America.
It's the culture. It's a little bit of everything.
I went to college in Arizona, and everyone was armed to the teeth. I've been around a lot of armed people who don't function the way that we see guns being used on the news and stuff. So I'm not sure what the middle ground is. I'm really, really bad on this issue. I do know that if you have a gun in your house with any kid, regardless of their age or regardless of their mental capability, it should be under lock and key, and that lock and key should be in a different location. Like, I don't think people should be running around with arms willy-nilly. I don't need you sitting next to me at the pizza place with your concealed weapon, But the reality is, I don't think the guns are going anywhere. And they said that the day after everything that happened, they sold like more guns than the usual day. That like people went out and armed themselves. They didn't think we need to be less armed. They thought we need to be more armed. That's why I'm saying it's a multifaceted problem. We don't need assault weapons in people's houses. You don't need that much ammunition. You do need to be responsible. But it's not something we can do overnight, so every single component needs to be looked at.
If you're just joining us,
in the end, I say sell them all and let God sort it out.
I was going to mention your website again, Maysoon, Maysoon.com. Am I pronouncing it correctly, by the way?
People can follow me on Twitter where I live. I live on Twitter. It's horrible.
Okay.
Christmas is not a busy time for comedians. Like, the agents go home for Hanukkah. They don't come back until after New Year's. So I'm on Twitter pretty much 24/7.
Excellent.
And they can follow me there at
we do have to wrap up. Only got a couple minutes left, but Maysoon, I want to thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you, pleasure to speak with you, and I love the conversation. I hope we can do it again sometime in the future. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the random conversation, and have a happy Christmas, Hanukkah, Eid, Ramadan. Goodbye.
That was absolutely amazing. Check out her website, Maysoon.com, Maysoon.com, the actress, comedian, writer.